to Top Voice segment on the show. Well, the 8th of July is when the world will know whether Macron's big gambit has paid off or not, but the instability is set to impact the entire European Union. I spoke with German envoy to India, Dr. Philipp Ackermann, the first top voice on the show, on the present flux that EU is witnessing. On one end, there are newer members like Ukraine, Moldova being inducted, and on the other end, there are political forces that are opposed to the very idea of European Union that are now gaining steam across the continent. What happens going forward? Listen in.
Yeah, it's an interesting question. And first of all, thank you very much for having this conversation with me. But I would say there is a resurgent right. There is no doubt about it. We've seen it during the latest European elections. But at the same time, you have to see that the center still has a very comfortable majority, and we have seen decision has been taken that Ursula von der Leyen, the German president of the Commission, will continue to be the president of the Commission. We'll have an agreement on the president of the Council, who will be the former Portuguese prime minister, and we have the agreement on a new European foreign minister, as it were, namely the Prime Minister of Estonia. And that shows that the European Union has a clear decision and resolve to continue to be a very, very important political and economic factor. So I say yes, there are question marks. There are parties in Europe that might wish to change one thing or the other, but overall I think the elections have shown that the center left and right, center left and right, has a very, very good majority. Now, you are referring to the new candidates, and as you rightly say, Ukraine and Moldova have been the newest of a series of candidates.
The negotiations have started.
Exactly.
It's a long process.
It's a very long process. We won't see them the day after tomorrow joining the EU. And you should not forget there are a couple of other countries in line, like Kosovo and Albania and Montenegro and some Balkan places who want to join the European Union. So there is still a very strong soft power the European Union has, and I think there is, after the disastrous experience with Brexit, there is no wish in no country really to leave the European Union, and that even Marine Le Pen, she started a couple of years ago saying that we have to leave the euro and we have to leave the EU. That she doesn't say anymore.
Does this impact, let's say, the institution of European Union as a whole? Is that now something that it's being tested right now in country after country?
We have seen over the last decades that many countries have tried to reform the European Union, have tried to introduce new legislation, and that is an evolving process and will continue. And therefore, I think that I'm pretty confident that even with new composition of members in the European Parliament, we will have a big majority for those who want to continue to work in a constructive way within the European Union. And one thing you should not forget is that these right parties who now get a bigger share of the seats in the European Parliament, they don't like each other so much. So, for example, the German right-wing party and the French right-wing party don't get along, not at all.
Is that a comforting factor?
It is basically meaning that the extreme right is not, showing the strength or the overwhelming share of its role in the European Parliament. It's a fractionized right, which means that the center is more powerful. I can say that, I think.
And what happens to some of the fundamental policy framework that defines the EU? And we would see some of that in France as well, post 7th of July, whether it is around immigration, whether it is around fundamental issues related to economic unity. Do you think those specific issues could possibly undergo a lot of change?
So I think you'll have a new political shift in the European Parliament that will reflect European legislation. It will reflect policies in the Commission and in the Council. There is no doubt. I would say there is one central problem in Europe that is reflected in the election result. That's the problem of migration. Everything else is, I think, manageable. But the migration thing, there is so much pressure from the East and from the South to the European Union that countries, including mine, people get more and more uncomfortable with the situation of illegal immigration. And you will see that the new Commission will try to take more decisive steps to dim or to reduce illegal immigration as much as we can. There must be a sort of a channelization, there must be a regulation of migration. At the same time, and that's very interesting, almost all of Europe need skilled labor migration. Why? Because the demographic development in Europe is so, frightening. Germany has a birth rate of 1.5, 1.6. If we want
All of it is under,
it's under the
TFR of 2.1.
TFR, exactly.
Needed for replacement.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. And in countries like Poland or Spain or Italy,
it's even lower than that.
So in order to
all
keep
of such issues get impacted because everything falls under the umbrella idea of immigration, and even the skilled migrant issue sort of gets lost in it.
So I don't think that this is necessary. And I think when you talk to Germans, for example, the country I represent here, people can distinguish between legal and illegal immigration. So there is when the small and medium-sized entrepreneur looks for skilled workforce, he has the sympathy of his colleagues in the plant or in the factory. What they don't want is migration that undermines the social welfare, and that's people who are seeking asylum, people who flee for economic reasons, and they can't find jobs right away. So skilled migration is basically something that, and we agree upon this, even the right wing would not say no to it, is something that we need, and that's my government and many other governments too are now really recruiting quite strongly people to come to Germany, amongst others in India.